Hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much if you watched the video that I published last week. I thought, riding on the heels of that video, that I might as well answer a very commonly asked question that we get in the comments quite a bit these days, which is how we film these videos, what we're using for camera gear and audio gear and all the rest. So this is going to be a bit more of a technical episode. I'm going to cover video equipment first, and then I'm going to cover audio equipment, and then I'm going to talk a bit about editing. I learned all of this stuff essentially from watching YouTube videos. So this is more of a synthesis of like, okay, I've taken all this info and I've stuck it all together, and this is my solution that I have come down to after parsing all these little pieces. Okay, so let's begin. The most commonly asked question, what camera do we use? Just really quickly before I say this, we started getting this question a lot last year, but we have been using the same kind of camera since 2021. So the camera hasn't upgraded, but we have. And when you hear people talk about it's not the camera, it's how you use it, I mean, there is some truth to that. With that said, there is some things that are the camera. We have a very nice camera. This one is a Sony a7S III. We have two of these, so this is one and Aladino is filming on one, and these have been our workhorses since 2021, and they've been awesome. We filmed the entire northern voyage with these cameras. The reason why I like them is that they shoot really high quality footage in log, which I'll get into more in the editing section, and the footage is really malleable. The biggest difference between like an iPhone footage or just a cheaper camera and a professional camera like this is how much control you have over it. So in ideal conditions, everything's sunny, everything's, well set up, this camera isn't going to look significantly better than footage from my iPhone. But the big difference lies in what can you do with that footage. My iPhone footage is basically always going to look like my iPhone footage, with some exceptions. I mean, there's always exceptions to everything. iPhone footage is getting pretty good these days too. But with this, there is so much more information, depth contained within that image that if I wanted to, I could take that sky and turn it purple and the image wouldn't start breaking apart. Like, it would still look like a sky. It would look weird because it's purple, but it wouldn't get all pixelated and weird. And that's the power of a good camera that records in a good format. You have control. But the problem with control is you have to know what to do with it, which I learned the hard way because when we got this camera in 2021, I didn't really know how to use it properly. And I was seeing all this phenomenal footage on YouTube taken with this camera, and I'm like, why doesn't mine look like that? We'll get into that in the editing section. Now, new this year, we also have a Sony a7 IV added to the lineup. We got this camera this year because I was getting really into still photography as well as videography. These cameras are beautiful for videography, and this one is also really excellent for videography, but it's a bit more of a hybrid shooter. It takes bigger photographs than this one. This camera was also released, I think this year, if not end of last year maybe, whereas this one was released in 2020. So there's a few like more modern features in this one, like the stabilization is better, just some upgrades like that. But overall, day-to-day use, I haven't felt like a massive difference between these two cameras. It's more just, if I want to take a still photo, I'll reach for this one. As for lenses, we have three lenses. A long telephoto lens, a sort of mid-range lens, and Aladino's currently filming on the wide lens. This is a Tamron 50-400, huge range. We got this lens because it's very light. I really like having this massive zoom. It's really nice to have the versatility, and I decided to prioritize that. I can quickly film something Aladino's saying at 50 millimeters, and then I can swing back over to shore and get the bear on the beach or whatever, and that's amazing. This lens is a really beautiful lens. This is a Sigma 24-70. It's so nice. It's just got a quality about it. Like, it's got a certain something, I don't know how to describe it, like a butteriness to it. Unfortunately, I find that on the boat, I go for the 24-70 less than any other lens. just because 24 doesn't quite seem wide enough for the boat, which is a small space that you can't always back up in, right? Like it's nice to have that wide for the boat. And then if you're filming something on shore, 70 is not really enough. So this is a great all-around lens for when we go on shore or we're doing some kind of land-based excursion. This is usually what I'll bring. And then what Aladino's filming on is a Tamron 17-28. That's our wide lens. Very similar to this one. It's an excellent lens. It does what it should do. It is sharp. There's nothing like particularly special about it in the way that there is with the Sigma, but totally functional, good lens, and we use it a lot. The wide, if I was to only pick one lens on the boat, I might actually pick the wide lens. I think it's the most important. Now with the lenses, we also have a wide array of filters, which are really important. So here in front of me, I have two ND filters, and you can see this lens already has an ND filter on it as well. This is a neutral density filter, and it basically acts as sunglasses for your lens. Specifically for video, it doesn't come into play for photographers as much. But I'm going to talk about why you want this when I get into the how I actually use the cameras section. For now, I'll just say we use them every day. Couldn't live without them. Okay, I just grabbed some more filters to add to the collection. These are all so important. So on pretty much every single shot, we have oh no, it's not this here. We have a diffusion filter. This is a Tiffin Black Pro Mist diffusion filter. And basically all this does is it gives our footage just a slight ethereal softness. It's very subtle, and pretty much everything we film, there's a Tiffin on it. They come in varying strengths. The strengths are expressed in fractions, and smaller fractions are less powerful. So I usually use a 1/8 Tiffin filter on all of our standard footage. If I want a more stylized look, I might try a 1/4. I find it less applicable to every situation. Mostly I'll use that at night when there's some really beautiful light sources and I want that sort of glow to appear around them. Okay, so yeah, in order of importance, ND filters most important. Diffusion filters, I would say, are still pretty important. These next ones are important, but if you had to, skip some, these are the ones I would skip. These are polarizers, and these ones, you spin them, and it removes or introduces glare. So for example, when I was up in the rigging last season and I took those photos looking down into the water of the jellyfish, that was with a polarizing filter. Without the polarizing filter, probably all you would have seen is the surface of the water, but with this, you can actually see into the water. Useful, but I certainly don't use them as much, and they're not as widely applicable as these ones. All right, let's talk about actually shooting. I'm a huge proponent of setting up your camera to be custom to how you want to use it. And so that was the first thing I did when I got this new camera. I set it up to be identical to our other two cameras. Now, these are the settings that I typically use. I shoot everything in 422 10-bit. I use the XAVC-HS, which is not the highest quality footage that this camera can produce, but I think it's a really nice blend between very high quality and still not eating up, just terabytes of storage space. Most importantly though, I shoot everything fully manual. I try to leave my ISO at 640, which is the camera's base ISO, and I don't really mess with that unless I have to. Mostly I control just the aperture and the ND filter. I don't control the shutter. And the reason for that is because with video, there's this rule called the 180-degree shutter rule, and it states that your shutter speed should be double your frame rate. I've got 24 frames per second, and so my shutter speed is 1/50, so twice, pretty much. When I'm shooting, I'll go to number 2 here. When I'm shooting in 60 frames per second, 1/125. It's not exact math, but what that does is it gives you the most natural looking motion on screen. So if I was to reduce, well, this is going to be hard to see, but if I were to reduce the shutter speed by a lot and then move my hand, you see how jerky And like, that's so not smooth. And then by contrast, if I crank that shutter speed up really high, well, now it's too dark in here, you can't see it, but that's a little more subtle. You don't notice that quite as immediately, but it just gives all motion this very like robotic, like almost too crisp kind of look to it. So 60 frames per second, 1/125, and I leave it at that. Now, in order to control the light, that leaves me only with the aperture and the ND filter. And so when I'm in a bright daylight, I crank up that ND filter so that everything's really dark, and so that I don't have to crank my aperture all the way to its maximum. So I can still have a nice open aperture out on a bright sunny day. I also shoot everything in log, and log is a format that basically out of camera, everything looks kind of gray and flat. And it's a way that the camera records the information of a scene, but without, pushing in hardly any contrast or saturation, so that you, in post-production, can add in contrast, color, saturation, how you would like to, preserving the information in the shadows and the highlights. Very often you will see really crunched black shadows or really overblown highlights, specifically in like a midday high contrast scene. And so shooting things in log is kind of just a way to get a cleaner image without such extremes at either end. And I was talking before about control. It gives you a terrifying amount of control over what the end result looks like. So I'll get into that when I talk about the editing. Now there's so much more I could get into, like the use of stabilization and all of this, but I'm trying to get through, like broad scale everything. So we're going to move on to audio. All right, audio. Let's talk about, first of all, what's on the table. These are Clippies EM272. These are DJI wireless lav mics, I think the second edition of them. I think there's multiple generations now. This is a Zoom F3 field recorder. This is very exciting. I got this last year. This is an AT2020 mic. Less exciting. I'll talk about that. In here we have two Zoom ZPC1 stereo microphones. These are awesome. I'm excited to talk about those as well. And these are called dead cats or wind attenuators for the Zoom ZPC ones. Okay, let's talk about it. This is the newest addition to my kit, the Clippy EM272s. These are really excellent stereo microphones for field recording. And so what I've done is made this kind of janky setup so that I can mount it on top of my camera using the hot shoe on top of the camera. Here, I'll show you. And then I can plug it into the side of the camera. So it's just one plug, but it's two microphones and they're omnidirectional small microphones. So these are really excellent for field recordings. I find that these are very, very sensitive. They tend to have quite a bit of high end. Not in a negative way, but it's very noticeable. And so it's a very specific sound. I really like them, but I think they pair nicely with my other field recording setup, which is the Zoom ZPC ones. And this is what I bought last year. These are small pencil microphones paired in a stereo pair, and I plug these in to my Zoom F3 interface. Two cables go in the top here, and I had this whole setup that I actually built out. I'm very proud of this. You see, Aladino's not the only person who can build things. When I'm motivated, I can build something. This is called a stereo bar. It's got all of these little tripod style adapters on it, and this Zoom F3 has a tripod screw mount on the bottom. So I can mount that, And then I bought adapters for tripod thread to mic stand thread, mic holders, and my pencil condensers can fit in there. It's not all hooked up yet because we're missing the cables. I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. You got the idea. I put all my dead cats. And then this can all sit on top of my tripod with a quick release mechanism that I've screwed on the bottom. And so I've got this really nice field recording setup. This does not plug into the camera, it records to the interface. So then I have built a sound library of sounds using this that I will match to footage taken at a different time. These microphones are much more directional. So you point them at something and it will record what you're pointing at them at, but not necessarily what's behind them, which is in direct opposition to how these Clippies work. These are omnidirectional, they're recording everything all around. So it just depends on the situation. Sometimes you want one over the other. As an added bonus, I found that these Zoom ZPC ones have also been actually really nice for recording music. I've been using them for my violin a lot and they sound great. Now, turning to this microphone, you saw I had this plugged into the Zoom F3. I almost wasn't going to include this because my dad actually bought me this microphone when I was 13. It has served me very, very well, but that was many years ago. And so I think it's showing its age. It's a good microphone. AT 2020, Audio-Technica 2020, they're kind of a standard entry-level microphone. I've done a lot with this mic. But as a main voiceover mic, it's really not great. Like, my voiceovers are not the quality that I wish they were, and I think it's definitely time to upgrade my voiceover mic. It's such an important part of what we do. I actually am kind of embarrassed I haven't even done it yet, but that will come eventually. That's kind of the next piece of kit to upgrade. Okay, lastly, we have the DJI lav mics. These are lav mics, there's two of them, so we can clip one to each of us. And then this is the receiver, which, again, hot shoe mount on top of the camera, and it plugs in. Now, we had the first generation of these last season. They worked great, but unfortunately, one of these went in the water. Some of you might remember that happening. That was near Ucluelet. We had to get a whole new unit. And this one, for some reason, I don't know if it's a bad cable. I've tried switching out the cable. Still seems to be happening. But it's got these like pops in it. And you might have actually heard some of those pops in my video last week. I'm very frustrated by it. I'm not sure what's happening. We'll have to see. But for now, I don't know if I can recommend this. Again, I don't really know what's going on with it. Okay, and then the last mic to tell you about, I actually had to Google the name of this one because it's the one that I forgot, because it's probably my kind of least favorite mic. It's on the camera right now though. It's a Sony ECM B1M shotgun microphone. It is useful. It is just a little shotgun microphone that sits on the hot shoe mount. It's got its purposes and we do use it a lot. I just think there's better shotgun mics out there. This one, it very quickly will just like pick up a lot of random background noise, or I don't know, I just don't like the quality of it. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, you're hearing it right now. It's not bad, but it's not exceptional. It's just there. Okay, so I think that is the overview. Now let's move into editing. This is where it all comes together. Okay, editing. This is my favorite part because this is where the creativity comes through. Now, before I even make the edit, what I will do is look through all of the footage that I have for a project. I will kind of think about what the beginning, the middle, of the end is. I'll go through all of the footage and I will write a script. So I've got that script, and then I will come in and actually start the edit. I edit in Final Cut Pro, but it really does not matter. Really, it comes down to what you're used to. I first learned how to use Final Cut in high school, so I'm stuck with it at this point. What you're looking at here is my timeline for the last episode. I went really crazy on the sound design. So everything kind of below this, mute it, everything sort of below this bar with all the gray in it is sound for the most part. So there's just layers upon layers of sound effects. And then everything above the kind of gray bar is video for the most part. So for the sound effects, there's things, you know, like there's the actual natural ambient sounds that you expect to hear. So for example, right now we're looking at this section where we were traveling through Johnston Strait. So there's the sound of the water, obviously, because you're seeing the boat rush through the water, and there's the music, of course. But beyond that, there's actually quite a few subtle sound effects that are doing a lot of work underneath all that. So here's a riser, which is this kind of whoop. It kind of like brings you to a climax and then like releases. And so I used a lot of risers sort of moving you into new scenes, or maybe even before a big wave hits to kind of prepare you for that like big wave, or maybe a big bass sound. So very often what I'll do is add a riser immediately followed by a bass. So you've got this boom kind of, and it's a really like, it makes the moment so much bigger. I should also say music. Music is obviously so important. One of my favorite sites to get music from is MusicBed. They have actually been kind enough this year. This is very exciting for me. This year they actually reached out and they offered us a subscription on them, which is amazing because I mean, I had been paying for it for years before that because it's worth it. But this was very exciting for me because we are a sailing channel. And so typically the brands that reach out that want to work with us are sailing related brands, things for the boat or navigation or stuff like that, which is awesome. But I send all that to Aladino and he decides if he wants to go ahead with it or not. And nobody really reaches out and asks if I want filmmaking related stuff. So thank you, MusicBed. That was actually really validating. Thank you very much. But they just have very high quality music, I find. There are subscription services out there that are good, and I mean, there's plenty of them, but I just find that the MusicBed music, it doesn't sound like royalty-free music. It's real music by real artists, and I think the difference is obvious. Like, I think you can hear it, I hope, in my films. I know we get lots of comments about that, so...
Yeah, the selection part, you're really, really good at it, and I think that is maybe partly because you're a musician yourself.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the selection part of it is a whole other thing, too. And I don't actually think I have any advice there. It's just really about what you want to feel and where your tastes are. And there's no, like, right or wrong or formula. It's just... sometimes there's a scene that needs some Spanish guitar, and sometimes there's a scene that needs like a massive epic orchestral piece. And so usually what I do, like I'll have that vision, and then I'll go to MusicBed with that vision. And then they've got all sorts of filters that make it easy to sort of say what you're looking for, cinematic, this mood, this speed, and then they'll show you everything they got. What I do really want to spend some time talking about is color, because this is getting back now to the fundamental question, the most commonly asked question that we get on the channel, which is what camera you use. Really what you're asking is how do you get an image that looks like that? And people maybe think that the right question to get to that answer is what camera you use, but really the right question is how do you color grade? Because any professionally produced film that you see will have been color graded. Any Hollywood film, a lot of high production YouTube films now, nobody is just shooting straight out of camera and sticking it up for the world to see. So what you see on my screen right now, this is log. This is what all of my footage looks like when it comes out of camera. Well, this is drone footage, that doesn't film in log. But all of my camera footage is log. That's a photograph. And this is what it looks like. So obviously not fun to look at, it's just a very blank kind of image. When I'm editing, so that I don't drive myself crazy looking at this blank image, I will turn on what's called an adjustment layer, and that's just kind of got a filter in it to make the footage look normal. And that just makes it a bit easier to edit all of this stuff. For color, I use a program called DaVinci Resolve. And so the workflow is, once I'm finished the edit in Final Cut, I'll export it and move it into DaVinci Resolve. So all the audio, all the cuts, the story, everything's laid out. Color is the very last thing that I do. And I go through shot by shot, and I individually color every single shot. So this, along with sound, is where a lot of time goes. In the film last week, let's see here, I think there was over 600 individual shots. Yep, 638. So here, blank slate, log straight out of camera, and I will turn on sort of my first layer. This is a conversion LUT. This one is called Referent, and it's by a colorist named Cullen Kelly on YouTube. He's excellent. So already we have an image that now looks normal, but there's still improvements that we could do. So this first little node here is exposure. I wanted this shot to be really dramatic and really moody. So you can see that I brought the exposure down a bit, and I also turned the white balance, I think, just slightly towards blue in this node. That's actually not, yeah, I should have done all the white balance in the next node, but I guess I was just getting ahead of myself. So here's the actual white balance node. I don't think I actually did much in this node. Next is contrast. Contrast is huge. This is where things really start to come alive. So here is the first contrast edit. Obviously here, this is like a high action moment, so heavy on the contrast. And I always apply my contrast using a S-curve, usually. There's different ways to apply contrast. Okay, so the next one that I used here was saturation. And this one's really important. There's a lot of different ways to bring in saturation. What you're looking for is a tool that will allow you to use subtractive saturation. So there's a few different ways to achieve that in DaVinci, and I'm not getting into all the nuts and bolts of that. If you're curious, search for subtractive saturation in DaVinci on YouTube. I think I did a little bit of specific sort of light shaping in this shot. So when I turn this node on, you can see I've got there's called a power window, a window just on the boat to kind of increase the brightness on the boat specifically. And then this node actually kind of affects the area outside the power window, and I brought the exposure down there. And so that gives me this really nice effect where the boat is brighter, the water is darker. Again, I turn that on and off. This is what we started with, and this is what we ended with. Well, actually what we really started with is this. That's the log. But this is what we started with sort of the conversion filter on it. And I'm really happy with these results. So yeah, I did that to every single shot, and every shot is unique. So I've built out this node tree that I can sort of apply to every shot. It's there, it's the same for every shot, but how I use it is really different. Like some shots I'll have most of the nodes turned off, some of them they'll all be turned on doing different things. Like it really depends. So I hope it makes sense now why the camera is not the most important factor in how your shot ends up looking in the end. It is an important factor because I can't do this amount of color editing with footage that's taken by an inferior device. You know, like our drone, there's not enough information contained with that image for me to push the colors as much as I'm pushing them here, because the image will just start to break. It'll start to look all pixelated and gross, and it just won't work. You need a camera that will allow you to do that, but beyond that, the actual look is built here. And with the lenses, I think your lens selection can be important, and your filters. But yeah, the camera is just a recording device. You want it to record in a high enough quality, but beyond that, everything else is shaped by you. I feel like that was such a whirlwind, and at the same time that it took all day. So I don't know. I hope that was helpful and interesting. Maybe it gives you some insight into my day-to-day, the reason why I seem to be on my laptop a lot. But I really enjoy it, and I think maybe also it should give you into some insight into how necessary it is to enjoy this, because it becomes so life-consuming that if you aren't like passionate about it, it just doesn't work. It's like the boat building with Aladino. Like, he's passionate about it, and so he's able to do it. And I wasn't passionate about it, and so it was really tough for me. And I think it's exactly the same with video editing. I love it, and so I don't find it hard to spend all day doing it. But like, you know, Dean, you're a good example of somebody who does not like being on a computer, and so this wouldn't work for you. And so if you're thinking about starting something like this, you really have to ask yourself that, like, do you love to create stories and like spend time on these little details to make things beautiful? If you do, this is the most rewarding path you could go down. And if you don't, it will drive you up the wall. So, thank you for being here. Thanks for watching my videos. We'll be back, as always, next week. Now, we're obviously dealing with huge amounts of footage, and so my laptop has 2 terabytes of internal storage, but then I also have these 2 SSDs velcroed onto the back of my computer. They are here all the time, little sea lice on my salmon, and these are 2 terabytes each. This is sort of the active footage that I have going on at the time, but in this cupboard we've got this whole case which is filled with these LaCie hard drives, and that's all footage from years gone by. Each of these is 4 terabytes, and I think we have about 15 of them right now, and that's only half of what we have. So it is insane, but we've been filming for 8 years. So actually, when put that way, it's not even that bad. Like I said, part of why I love this camera is I am able to shoot in a really great picture quality, maintaining a lot of information, but it is a compressed file size, which is great. Hello, it is Editing Maya here. Aladino is motoring the boat currently, so I'm going to try to speak up so you can hear me. But I wanted to quickly say one more thing, which is that after editing this video and watching it back, I realized that it might be discouraging for somebody starting out, because we have a lot of equipment now. Oh my gosh, Aladino. We have a lot of equipment now. We have a dream setup. Show me this setup a few years ago, I would not have believed that we could ever own anything close to this. We started this channel with an iPhone 5 and a GoPro 3 or whatever it was back then. You don't need all this equipment to begin, but for 8 years now, this has been our job, and it's, our main source of income. It's our business. And so we have invested every year. We've also been gifted some really phenomenal equipment. We've been given discounts on equipment. So it's been a slow and steady progression, but basically our thing has been that every year we try to invest in one important new thing. And now we're really reaching the point where our kit feels complete and done, which is part of the reason why I'm happy to share this video. But I also just want to say that this is not where we began. This is not where you need to begin. I'm grateful to be where we're at now, but it was not the start. Okay, we're really ramping up here. Bye for now.